Well, hey everybody, Mr. Reeves back with you as we continue our look at Lesson 5.1 in the Math 7 textbook, percent of increase and percent of decrease. So in my previous video, I introduced these topics as well as doing some problems where we were given the original quantity and the percent of increase or of decrease, and we found the final quantity, which in that case was the new price on a television that had either been marked up with an increase or marked down with a decrease. So in this video, we're going to actually do some problems where they are going to be giving us the original quantity and the final quantity and then asking us what that percent was. So just a reminder, this is super important. You must know this if you're going to be doing these problems. The percent of change is the amount of change over the original amount. The amount of change over the original amount. Again, if that change goes up, it's an increase. If that change goes down, it's a decrease. Okay, so let's just go ahead and take a look at a problem right here. It says the price of a pair of shoes increases from $52 to $62. What is the percent increase to the nearest percent? So again, we're going to be looking at the amount of change over the original amount, okay? The amount of change over the original amount. Okay, let's take a look here. That was from our previous video. We've got 52 over 64. So let me do this, okay? So I'm going to write this down again. The percent of change equals the amount of change over the original amount, okay? The amount of change over the original amount. So the amount of change is going to be subtracting, right? All right, so the amount of change is going to be the new minus the old. The new minus the old. Or, you know what? Let's do this. Let's do the larger minus the smaller. And the reason I'm going to say the larger minus the smaller instead of the new minus the old, because if the new is smaller, we get a negative number every time. So we're going to do the larger minus the smaller over the original amount. And of course, if it's an increase, then the larger will be the second number. If it's a decrease, then the larger will be the first number. So here we go. So we're going to go 64 minus 52 over the original amount was 52. Okay, 64 minus 52 over 52. Well, 64 minus 52 is going to give me 12. So I'm going to have 12 over 52. All right, so now we got to go back to a previous lesson because we want to know what that is as a percent, okay? All right, so to change a fraction to a percent, because that's what we're doing. We did this in a previous lesson. Now you know why we did all those previous lessons on percent. What are we going to do? All right, we're going to divide. You remember this? We're going to divide the numerator by the denominator. Okay? We're going to divide the numerator by the denominator, and then we're going to change the decimal to a percent. We're going to move the decimal 2 places to the left, okay? So when we write the amount of change over the original amount, it's going to give us a fraction, all right? Then we're going to take that fraction, we're going to divide the numerator by the denominator. That's going to give us a decimal, and then we're going to move the decimal 2 places to the left. Again, this is all stuff we did in our previous lessons to get ready for this. That's why we went back to the 6th grade textbook. And now we're finally in the 7th grade textbook. And again, as I said in my previous video, you're going to find a calculator to be very helpful. I strongly recommend you use a calculator. Otherwise, you're going to be spending a long time doing computations. All right, so 12 was the amount of change. And I'm going to divide that by 52, which was my original amount. And what do I get? I get 0.230769231. All right, now it says to the nearest percent, okay? So if I move the decimal 2 places to the left, all right, so let me write this down. Oh, this is going to be a challenge. 2307669. 0.230769. We don't really need all these decimal places. 231. All right, 231. Now, what are we going to do? We're going to move it 2 places. Whoops, did I say left? That's a mistake. 2 places to the right. My bad. 2 places to the right. So here we go. So if we go 2 places to the right, what do we get? Now we have 23.0769231. All right, and now it's a percent. Now, a lot of times they're going to say round to the nearest. That's 0.60. My goodness, Mr. Reeves. 0.76921. Okay. A lot of times they're going to say round to the nearest 10th of a percent. So if they said that, then that would be 23.1%. That would be to the 10th. Sometimes they might say to the 100th. And then that would be 23.08%, right? Because we'd be going 2 places. Remember, when you go to round, you look 1 to the right, all right? And if that number is 5 or bigger, you round up. If it's 4 or smaller, you round down, all right? But it said to the nearest percent. That means the nearest whole percent. So 23, that is a 0. So the nearest whole percent would be 23%. Okay, so 23% would be the nearest whole percent. So again, to go back through this process to find the percent of change, we're going to put the amount of change, which we're going to get by subtracting the larger minus the smaller, over the original amount, right? That's going to give us a fraction. We're going to divide the numerator by the denominator. That's going to give us a decimal. Then we're going to move the decimal 2 places to the right, not to the left, and that's going to give us the percent. All right, and then we're going to look at that percent, and depending on what they tell us to round to, that will give us our final answer. Okay, so if we take a look at this one right here, another example, it says the price of a pair of shoes increases from 67 to 81. What is the percent increase? Okay, so again, we're going to do the amount of change. The amount of change over the original amount, okay? The amount of change over the original amount. And again, I'm going to do the larger minus the smaller. And my original amount was 67, okay? So 81 minus 67. Again, you are welcome to use a calculator. 81 minus 67, that's going to give me 14. All right, so now I have it as a fraction. But remember, what are we going to do? We're going to divide the numerator by the denominator, and then we're going to move the decimal 2 places to the right. So again, back to my calculator, I'm going to do 14 divided by 67. And when I do that, I get 0.20895. That's going to be plenty. I'm not going to write them all down like I did last time. 0.20895. All right. And it says to the nearest percent. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move that decimal 2 places to the right. And that's going to give me 20.895. 25%, but they want it to the nearest percent, so I go right here, and that number is 5 or larger, so it's going to be 21%. Do you see how 20.895% is closer to 21% than it is to 20%? So to the nearest percent would be 20%. I put that in, and it says try again. Uh-oh. Oh, because it was supposed to be 21%, Mr. Reeves. I said 20% last when I was telling you what it wasn't closest to. All right, there we go. Okay, well, that was no fun. All right, next question. Here we go. All right, so now we're going to be looking at percent decrease. But the good news is the process is the same. It just means that the second number is going to be smaller than the first number. All right, so we're still going to be finding that fraction. All right, we're still going to be finding the amount of change. The amount of change over the original amount, okay? The amount of change over the original amount. And that's going to give us our percent of change. But remember, we're going to do the larger minus the smaller, because that will make sure we don't get a negative answer, all right, over the original. And then we just know that if it got smaller, that it's decreased, right? So the number of students in a chess club decreased from 18 to 12. What is the percent decrease? All right, 18 to 12. So what are we going to do here? We're going to do 18 minus 12 over what was our original amount? 18. All right, so hopefully you don't need a calculator to know that 18 minus 12 is 6 over 18. All right, and you know what? I don't need a calculator for this, and you shouldn't either, because 6/18 simplifies to 1/3, which we should know is 33. 33 and 1/3%. Anyone who's been paying attention heard me say there's ones you should memorize, and that's one you should memorize. Now, let's just say you weren't paying close attention. Yes, you can do 6 divided by 18. And when you do 6 divided by 18, you get 0.33333 and so on, right? And then you can move that decimal 2 places to the right, and you would get 33.3%. All right, now to the nearest percent, all right, again, they don't want anything. Nearest percent means nothing after the decimal. 0%, nearest percent means nothing after the decimal. Is 33.3% closer to 33% or 34%? And the answer is it's closer to 33% because it's less than halfway between them, right? That's why we check that 5, because 5 would be halfway. For halfway, we go up. For less than halfway, we go down. All right, so Officer Brimbury went from 16 tickets down to 10 tickets. So again, I'm going to do 16 minus 10 over my original, which was 16. And what do I get? I get 6/10. Now again, this is one you should have memorized. 6/10 simplifies to 3/5. Also 6/10 you should just know it's 6 out of 10. That would be 60 out of 100. So this one is exactly 60%. See how memorizing things can help you actually do math faster. All right, but again, if you did not recognize that, you could do 6 divided by 10. You will get exactly 0.6, right? Which gives you 60%. All right. Okay, so that is how you find the percent of change. Remember, if it is going up, it's an increase. If it's going down, it's a decrease. You always find the amount of change over the original amount. Then you divide the numerator by the denominator to get the decimal, and then you move the decimal 2 places to the right. And again, pay attention to those directions, whether they tell you all the time. We were asked to round to the nearest percent. But sometimes I do believe they will ask you to round to the nearest tenth. But looks like mostly for these, they want you to round to the nearest percent. All right. Well, have a great day. Until next time, everybody. Bye.